to honour the life of Robyn Elizabeth Lawrence, who passed from this world on the morning of Saturday, the 12th of September, 2020. What a year it's been. We'll always remember the year that Robyn passed. And we've gathered together today to give thanks for her. We've gathered today to collectively grieve and mourn the loss of a dear friend, a wife, a sister, a mother, and a grandmother. And we've gathered today to express our love and to offer support to Gordon, Matthew and Michelle, Rebecca and Phil, Deborah and Paul, Hannah and Mark, and the grandchildren. My name is Dale Bradley. My wife and I worshipped in this church along with Robyn and Gordon for over 40 years, and so we've enjoyed a long friendship. We raised our children together, we celebrated milestones together, and an honor to be officiating today. Our service will include each member of Robyn's immediate family, who will pay tribute to her. At the conclusion of the service, we'll sing a song, and then I ask you to remain standing for a short committal service. The cortege will then take the casket from this room, and we invite you to follow the family downstairs where you can say your final goodbye before the hearse departs. Then you're invited to return here to this room, where, following all the protocols of level 2.5, refreshments will be served and we can enjoy a time of fellowship together. The toilets are located through the doors to your right on this side of the auditorium, and in the unlikely event of a fire, there's a fire exit towards the front and left of this room. Robyn chose the Christian faith for her spiritual pathway, and we will be drawing on those beliefs and traditions in this service. I'm confident that above all, Robyn would want us to be honest in our contemplation. Clearly, Robyn's understanding and experience of the spiritual and the divine will not be a mirror image of yours. And so I encourage you to participate fully in and to engage spiritually in the way that accords best with your spirit. The writer of the book of Ecclesiastes reminds us that for everything there is a season, a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born, and a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. May I now lead you to sense the presence of God. We'll have a moment of quiet, and after that moment, I'll lead you in a prayerful response. Creating God, we thank you for the gift of life. And today we thank you for Robyn's life. She was a gift to us and to many others in New Zealand, Aotearoa, and to friends in other parts of the world. Loving God, we thank you for the gift of love, for the wonder of human relationships, for the ability to know another and be known, for the opportunity to accept another and to be accepted. source of all love, and we thank you for the depth of relationship we had with Robyn that makes our grieving even deeper. We thank you for opportunities to let go of the past and to make fresh beginnings. And so, today, right now in your presence, we want to let go of any hurt or failure in our relationship with Robyn. Forgive us as we forgive those who sin against us. May our continuing memories of Robyn be filled with your peace, ever-present God. Receive our humble prayer and offering and requests. Through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. We'll now have a reading brought to us by Joel Lawrence and Toby Sussex.
My name's Joel, and I'm the son of Matthew and Michelle and the grandson of Robyn and Gordon. I've got two poems here that Grandma wrote. The first one's called Following the Sunshine. I woke last night, and as I wrote, I thought. From the couch this morning, I looked through the spaces, between the branches, and I followed the sunshine, and the pathway it lit. I walked along the pathway that the sunshine lit today, and I walked that pathway. And the second one is called The Rocks I Carry. I always knew the words would come down the mountain in my mind. With the rocks I carry, as I walk the track, I sit by the fire today, hold and polish those rocks as they carry that moment down the mountain one last time.
I've got a reading from the book of Romans, chapter 8, verses 35 to 39. Can anything ever separate us from Christ's love? Does it mean he no longer loves us if we have trouble, or calamity, or are persecuted, or hungry, or destitute, or in danger, or threatened with death? No, despite all these things, overwhelming victory is ours through Christ who loved us. And I am convinced that nothing can ever separate us from God's love, neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither our fears for today nor our worries about tomorrow. Not even the powers of hell can separate us from Christ's love. No power in the sky above or in the earth below, indeed nothing in all creation will ever be able to separate us from the love of God that is revealed in Christ Jesus our Lord.
Thank you, Joel and Toby. Following the singing of the next hymn, the family will bring their tributes, beginning with Robyn's sisters, Cheryl and Margaret, who I asked to come forward after the hymn without any further introduction. We do have a schedule to follow, and we need to try to meet the times prearranged with our funeral director. We understand that those of you bringing tributes have overflowing hearts. If I sense you're exceeding your allotted time too much, I'll be your gentle reminder. Please stand and sing together the great hymn, Amazing Grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but
major spur in the little town of Robyn, which continued for some time. I first came to know Gordon when he and his sister Noreen, we were at Wellington Teachers College at the same time, although Gordon was a year ahead of me. A year later, my sister Robyn had volunteered to go on a Scripture Union camp to Kaitereri Beach, and we were at the airport with her when the team was gathering. I spotted Gordon in the distance and thought, oh, he must be on the same team, so I introduced Robyn to Gordon, and the rest is history. The last year or so, I've had regular phone conversations with Robyn, and she always greets me with, how lovely to hear your voice. And we have our catch-up. Our last phone call, at the beginning of last week, she was telling me about two books that she was reading. Both authors had the name, a Christian name, Rachel. And she was telling me about one of them, and I thought, oh, I got that from the library yesterday. So we compared notes, and then she said, now the other one is a book of poetry, and it's written by Rachel McAlpine. There's one every time I read it to you. Every time I read it, I want to read it to you. She said, I'll go and get the book. So she did, and she read me the poem. I decided I needed that book, so I made a bus trip on Saturday into Unity Books in Wellington and purchased a copy. Sitting on the bus, holding my copy on the way home, when I got the message from Gordon to say that she had passed.
You all know who I am. I have been asked to talk to you about Robyn's childhood. Robyn worked. Children were her career. So it's timely that we hear how she was a child. I'm aware this doesn't carry him as I do this. I would like to talk to you in that we were we. I've never been I, so it's going to have to be our memories because I have no singular ones. We were a team. We could make people laugh. When we were young children, we found out that together we were very creative and we could asked to write and create a musical for the youth group, and we did. It was so good that we were in demand, and we had to travel and produce it 5 times in different youth groups around the area. Robyn wrote it all. We created it together, but Robyn was the writer, as you know, a great love of word, and I had to do the rest. And you know, she was an amazing producer, amazing, and she's a great organiser. She always has been. She had the 3 of us to organise from birth, as Cheryl told you. She came first, and she did a good job, and she loved it, and we were happy to just go along with her and be her workers. Our fun, Robyn and I, it was our great love. And the lambing beats at Young Girls, our father needed us. His hands were too big to birth the lambs. So at a young age, he taught Robyn and I how to do that. And at 5 a.m. every day on the lambing beat weeks, we were with Dad in the frost in the dark, and that's what we did. And we loved. So you see, our childhood is different. It is very different. And as for play, it just, we found our fun in so many different ways. So many different ways. I'm going to stop because there's a limit and someone's going to tap me on the shoulder. Robyn, I don't know how to say goodbye. I really don't. I've got a lot of learning to do about being I. I love you dearly. I don't know how. I just want you to know I love you. I would never have had my life any different.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Gordon toko papa, ko Robyn toko mama, ko Matthew toko ingoa. Hello everyone. My father is Gordon, my mother is Robyn, and my name is Matthew. My mum Robyn loved fire. She loved ahi. She loved its warmth and its smell. But more than that, I think she loved how fire draws people together and fosters relationships. And being Robyn, she of course drew her children into this love. So I have many memories of fires and things done with fire. Campfires in the backyard so that we can cook sausages on some old roofing iron, bake potatoes in the coals, the long-handled toasted sandwich maker that we used to make toasted sandwiches on top of the potbelly stove in the laundry. And of course, whenever it was cold, or to be true, even slightly cool outside, there was always a welcoming fire in the lounge to warm ourselves with as we sat and talked about what was happening in our lives.
sent a column of oily black smoke into the sky, the one that was followed by the sound of a siren eerily circling the valley before stopping across the stream. Sounds of firemen crashing through the bush before retreating back to their fire truck and circling back around the valley. Then firemen finally arriving to find all that was left was us cooking sausages over the coals on that old bit of roofing iron. Still, a fire called in is a fire put out. So we were then treated to the wonderful sight of a fireman in full firefighting kit, helmet and all, dribbling water from a garden hose onto the coals. Because, let's face it just wasn't worth getting out their big hose and lugging it all the way down from the street. But while all this excitement was happening, what was Mum up to? Well, the fire had gathered people, and she'd spotted the father from the daycare, and was of course busy chatting with him. My mum loved fires and the things that they brought into her life. But in a flash this week, the world has changed, and Mum is no longer in it. And I've been lighting fires and keeping the house warm, just like she taught me. But there is still a hole that will not, cannot, and should not be filled. I cry and I grieve, but I'm not sad. And to explain how that is possible, I'd like to read from C.S. Lewis, one of Mum's favourite Christian authors. I have come home at last. This is my real country. I belong here. This is the land I've been looking for all my life, though I never knew it till now. The reason why we love the old Narnia is that sometimes it looked a little like this. Rihihi, come further up, come further in. And as he spoke, he no longer looked at them like a lion, but the things that began to happen after that were so great and beautiful that I cannot write them. And for us, this is the end of all stories, and we can most truly say that they lived happily ever after. But for them, it was only the beginning of the real story. All their life in this world and all their adventures in Narnia had only been the cover and the title page. Now at last they were beginning chapter 1 of the great story, which no one on earth has ever read, which goes on forever, and which every chapter is better than the one before. Hekona mai, Mama. Goodbye for now, Mum. I will sing with you again.
I'd like to tell you about this project that Mum worked on with my children. This is what happens when you have to follow somebody. Sorry. I'll just start by reading her notes at the back of the book where she describes the process of how the project came to be. The story began one dark, warm and steamy evening in Siem Reap, Cambodia, as Pippa 6 and Molly 3.5 and I walked home from the night market. As we walked, the girls began to plan the story I must tell them that night before they went to sleep. Tonight it must be about 3 princesses. As they got ready for bed, they began to construct the identity of these wonderful characters. Pippa was to be Crystal, Molly became Rosie, and I was to be Pearl. 2 days later, after only 2 chapters, I left for New Zealand. Through Skype, emailing, receiving electronic copies of illustrations and shared brainstorming, the story continued to take form. Several times the children created exceptionally exciting and dangerous twists to the story, merging our ideas. Often the illustrations held the storyline for a new chapter. The story truly belonged to all of us. I was astonished at the skill the children had in their understanding of the continuity of narrative. They played with ideas and in many ways touched upon the great narratives of the human race, those of bravery, courage, safety and fear. Pippa, the talented artist and storyteller who was the main illustrator for the book and a contributing author, without her ideas and the details that evolved through through family conversations, this book would be considerably less. Some of the most exciting chapters have arisen from the ideas of the children. They have interwoven danger and excitement throughout. Mum's description is a great example of her involvement in our lives and the lives of her grandchildren. She listened deeply to us all and noticed every detail of our thinking, feelings, learning and passions. She could take a thread and support us in weaving that thread into a masterpiece. This book is just one very special example of that. Mum was a master of drawing the best out of people and helping them to reach their potential. She believed in us and valued us deeply. Her comments about Pippa, who partnered with her so closely in this project as an author and an illustrator, reflect the value and respect she had for young and old. The ability Mum had to make each of my children feel important in this project was amazing. She genuinely used their ideas and contributions in a meaningful way. There was no tokenism with Mum. When my children read the finished product for the first time, they were able to recognise it. It was exactly as they planned and worked together with her for it to be. And this is not a unique situation. It was who Mum was. To illustrate again the value that she placed on us and our children, I want to tell you the story of what happened next. Several months after the book was completed, Mum flew to meet us on holiday in Singapore. There was so much excitement as we eagerly awaited her arrival and the books that she had brought with her. Not just a photocopied homemade version of a book, but an actual, real, published book. We'll never forget her arrival in the small hostel bunk room that we were staying in. She arrived in the middle of the night directly from Auckland with homemade hot buns and fresh blueberries. We sat in our crammed room eating buns and blueberries and talking non-stop, and then it happened. She pulled out a bundle of books. The next day, we travelled to an island in Malaysia for our Easter holiday with Mum. A highlight of our time was a beautifully organised book launch on the beach at sunset. Mum put so much effort into making sure this was a real book launch for a real book. There was nothing pretend about this. The value she placed on this meant the world to us all. We felt important to her and we felt a connection and sense of belonging. This was something that she was incredibly gifted in nurturing in us all. We have never doubted her deep and unconditional love for each and every one of us. Family meant the world to her. She was instrumental in creating a strong family culture in us all, from our own immediate family right through to the incredibly larger extended family beyond. This is the legacy she has left for us, and we will continue it. Mum was in her element when we gathered as a family. That brought her much joy. Gatherings were always a celebration. And so I'll finish with this last paragraph in the book. The people danced and sang, ate and drank, and the children fell asleep on couches, on soft rugs, and beside their parents. There was more than enough food for everyone, and the ginger beer and wine never ran out. It was the best celebration the village had had in 100 years.
Mum asked, "How do I close at the end of the day?" She pondered these life questions. Mum's intelligent mind enjoyed discovering and defining the world around her, shifting and developing as her world around her shifted and developed. Mum's courageous heart found acceptance throughout her life journey. She creatively processed her wanderings and thinkings. Mum faced life and lived life to the fullest. Mum writes, "Yes, as he had presumed, there is some writing, and that pleases me and causes satisfaction as I find joy in being alive and holding on to the
expression of feeling. Thank you, Mum, for leaving us the gift of your journal, a window into your mind and heart. Robyn was my mum. As we hear the word mum, thoughts of relationship immediately come to mind. What is mum? Mum is a relationship bigger than my 2 to 3 minutes, bigger than our collective thoughts in this room. It's a what is God type of question. Mum explored those big life questions like, when did you first meet yourself? Mum's motivation was love. Mum is love. The bond between a mother and her child is love. Love is inside us, where Mum is and will always be. I'd like to close with Mum's words, a poem called Bring Me Back. Robyn, it's a good world out there. Start living it. Move
The world we live in, and throughout her life has held on to some very beautiful, special places. For Mum, these places were not only physically beautiful, but also held a connection for her to a wealth of special memories, history and stories. And each visit to one of those places was a chance to remember and retell those stories and an opportunity to create new ones. She had them all over New Zealand, the world, and at home in her treasured garden. Mum shared many of her special places with me, and I always felt so thankful that she was willing to let me be a part of the story and connection over the years. We went on many adventures to find many new shared places together. I loved and treasured these times with Mum and the stories she told, the conversations we shared, and the love for nature and adventure that she passed on to me. Whenever I found a new special place, no matter where it was, I couldn't wait to share it with Mum and have her become part of the story as well. Before I left to live in America, Mum and I went to as many of our favourite places together as we could to strengthen our connection to each other and home. I loved how Mum saw the beauty in all things, big and small, and she didn't just see it and observe it, she went looking for it. I loved the sparkle in her eye and her smile when she found it. Mum loved to collect rocks and collected many. She would pick them up and hold them, feel them, spend time with them, polishing them. She kept them in her pockets, always revisiting them and taking the time to find and bring out the true beauty in them, just as she did people. I found a note she had written recently, simply saying, "When I rub the rocks on my jeans, they polish differently." And I think that was one of the special things about Mum. Just as she did with these rocks, she knew that everyone was different and polished differently. And she took the time to get to know each of us in them and nurture us in them. You see, Mum truly valued relationship and people and had a very rare and special gift of being able to help people polish or shine. We are all given gifts from God, and she had the ability to help people find the courage to find out what theirs was and to do the best they could with it. Mum was very intentional, authentic, respectful and grace-filled in her relationships. She took the time to truly get to know people, their history, their story, and she had the ability to quietly get alongside them and nurture, encourage and support them to live their dreams. She had an unshakable belief in all of us. Throughout all my running career, I struggled with confidence and nerves. It was Mum that supported me through that. She was the one that helped me get to the start line. The last thing I did before any race started was to hand Mum my warm-up gear and give her a huge hug. She would always hold me tight and tell me she loved me and to go out there and run hard and with confidence that I could do it. She told me to fly like the eagles of Isaiah. No matter how the race went, she was always there at the finish line with arms open. Mum gave me everything she possibly could to support me in achieving my dreams. You see, Mum knew that life, like any race, was full of ups and downs, and she made sure we all knew that she was there for us, no matter what. No matter how broken we felt or how much we felt we had failed. She wanted us to know that the door to her home, our home, was always open. No judgment. She loved us no matter what. It's been said that being listened to and being loved are so intertwined that they are sometimes seen as one. I think Mum knew that. She always had a heart open. She had a heart and ears open to listen and time to give. In fact, after many late night talks with Mum about those big questions, well, after I had gone to bed, she would write a note for me to see the next morning and put it on the orange table in the kitchen with another wise thought or encouragement. To give me encouragement or inspiration for the day ahead, I looked for those notes as a guiding strength. Just as I clung to the cards of encouragement she would hide in my bag for me to read when I went to races she couldn't get to, I hung on to the strength that they gave me so tightly. There were many departure gates at the airport, and as I was struggling to leave to go aboard to race, Mum knew just the right thing to tell me, to give me the courage to take that first step, and she was always waiting for me on my return. Mum had a huge amount of courage and resiliency and was a quiet but courageous encourager of resiliency. And not only just to us, her kids, but her grandkids, our friends, her friends, and the generations of children that she spent time with within her work. When someone has lived as courageously and authentically and has given so much as Mum has, the ripples of her life run deep through the generations, and her light will never stop shining. Mum's love was like the banks of a river. Mum always held us tight, but she never held us back. I am, and always have been, so proud to call her my mum.
Good morning. On behalf of the family, I just want to thank you for coming and helping us celebrate and remember the full and interesting life of Robyn, my wife, and our mother, our grandmother. Of course, half of you are here because you're family and you didn't have a lot of choice. But under COVID-19, the rest of you are here with about the same odds as winning the lottery when we reached in the hat to see who we just had to be here. I want to acknowledge also those of you who are watching on live stream. We appreciate that your spirit is here with us, your thoughts are here with us, and we thank you so much for the many messages that have come in from around the world. We have friends and family, I believe, are watching in Stockholm or in Sweden, in Germany, in North America, from Invercargill to the far north, and friends, family, work colleagues, and anybody else who doesn't fit in those categories, I suppose. But thank you for watching us and participating even at a distance. I also want to take time at this stage to thank people for the amazing support we've received during the last week. We've had some great meals delivered from folk in the community and Howard Community Church, and that's been a real blessing to my family, who came expecting that they would have to put up with my cooking. I haven't learned to bake yet, but the cake tins have been full, and thank you for that too. I want to thank Phil Sproul, the pastor of Howard Community Church here, for his support and in finding and setting up the facilities for us. To Tanya, his wife, and the team of church ladies who are providing the refreshments at the end of the service. We're thankful, so thankful to you for the help and the support you've given us and are giving us in this particular way. As Dale mentioned, we've been in Howard Community Church, like him, for about 40 years. We arrived here in the end of 1977 when we came back from overseas, and into 1978. I want to thank Dale for taking this service today. We appreciate your friendship over the years, and Jill's too. And it's been a good walk together, and we've shared in some really interesting activities, and Dale has been at many of our family celebrations and was the officiating minister at 2 of daughter's weddings. It's a close association. So Chloe, thanks for coming in and helping us with the music and sharing your musical talents with us. It's really great to have your help. And Jordan Lawson, who's come with the AV gear and is doing the live streaming with far more professional gear than I imagined the webcam would be. Thanks, Jason, Jordan rather, for that. And I look at the flowers that are here and just amazed. And thanks to Tanya Milne for the tremendous amount of effort and work she's put into creating these colourful floral displays which so much reflect Robyn. Tanya and Robyn had been friends for so many years, and Robyn with her parents before that. Anne League's been a very helpful funeral director, thank you. And thanks to all the family members for the help in making Robyn's casket uniquely hers. Amazing drawings, all full of significance, all full of meaning, and just so beautifully done. Thank you. Well, we've decided to hold a private cremation service this afternoon. It'll be the first time that the whole immediate family, have been able to gather together with more than 10 since Robyn's death. And we want to thank in advance Phil for leading us through this final commemoration and commitment at the crematorium. So where do you start and acknowledge the life of somebody who you've loved for almost 60 years? And how do you do justice in just a few minutes? Well, it won't be just a few minutes. You know me. Oh, I meant to mention when I thanked Tanya for the flowers that to acknowledge the beautiful flowers that have arrived from Sweden, from Annika and Anders. So if you're watching this, Annika and Anders, thanks so much. The flowers are beautiful. Perhaps I should start by talking about the immediate period in the last week. You know, most of you will know that during the last 5 years, Robyn has had a series of events which affected her brain. In December 2015, after a great trip overseas, she fell down a bank in her garden while gathering lemons from the tree which was on the slope of the bank. She came to after the fall and was shown to have concussion. Just a year later, another Christmas, and she tripped and fell backwards, breaking an arm. Then in 2018, during a colonoscopy, she had cardiac arrest, was brought back to life and spent time in hospital to recover. Then in September last year, she had an event which we didn't understand, but kept her in bed for several days with slurred speech and in quite a strange condition. And that was later diagnosed as being a stroke. However, in February, she had a CT scan this year, and there was no evidence of the stroke. The neurologist could only find signs of early dementia and possibly Alzheimer's. But there have been other events in her life in the last 5 years, which in hindsight could be attributed to minor strokes. So, last Thursday, Robyn went off for a walk around the streets of Howick like she loves to do. She enjoyed walking and sometimes would end up at the beach and sit there and enjoy the waves and the sea and the view. Or she'd slip into Shamrock Cottage, her favourite coffee location, for a rest and coffee. However, the length of time she was away began to cause concern, especially as my daughters couldn't get her on the phone and neither could I. But Robyn preferred not to have a phone that rang aloud. She believed she could sense it with vibrations when somebody was trying to get her. Even though I tried to set it for sound, she would ask me to make it silent again. So we could explain that she just wasn't hearing the phone. However, I was shocked to get a call from Middlemore Hospital to say that Robyn had been admitted to A&E and was to have a brain scan. Apparently someone in the community had seen that she was confused and distressed and had called the ambulance. Last night, a week later, my phone text me to say I had a voice message. When I listened to it, it was somebody from Sale Street telling me that my wife was unwell and distressed and perhaps I could come and find her in Sale Street. That took a week for me to get the text message that it was a voice message. By that stage, of course, we know the development. On the way to hospital, I was phoned by the registrar and given the scan results. He told me that there was bleeding at the back of the brain, and they expected that this would create pressure, which in turn would restrict those essential vital functions that control the heart and the breathing rate, and I think he said also movement. I was warned that there was little chance of recovery and I should prepare for the event. Well, I got to A&E and Debbie had been able to come across and she joined me. We found Robyn. She was conscious but drowsy. Her eyes were open and she was aware we were there. We talked to her and I held her hand and she repeatedly squeezed it backwards and forwards. She listened as we both talked to her. We were allowed by the hospital to accompany her to the doors of Ward 31, and then we had to leave her. Her last words were, "Where am I?" And Debbie said, "In hospital, Mum." And she again asked, and Debbie again replied, and that was the last conversation we had. The next morning I rang the ward and was told that Robyn was asleep and they could not wake her. Debbie and I both went to sit with her until Matthew, Hannah and Rebecca arrived around lunchtime. They flew in from Wellington and Nelson. Then, because of COVID restrictions, we had to take turns to be with her until her passing. Matthew and I spent the night with her, and then the girls came in. And Hannah rang about 11 a.m. on Saturday morning to tell me that Mum had passed away, peacefully. She just stopped breathing and her grip on Hannah's hand relaxed. They've been reading to her, playing music, especially Toby and Pippa singing Then Sings My Soul, which she loved. Since then, life has been a bit of a blur for us all, and we're hoping we'll surface soon. Let's go back in time now to a time Cheryl mentioned. I first met Robyn at a beach mission in Kaiteriteri Beach near Nelson. As young people and keen Christians, we were part of a team providing a range of activities with a Christian message for children camping at this popular holiday spot. There have been numerous other missions like this throughout the country at beach resorts and so on. Robyn came to help with the kitchen crew, and I was there having my second year in the team working with the activities. The mission was run by an organisation which was then called the Children's Special Service Mission. It was English, but originally from England. But within Christian circles, the CSSM was known as Come Single, Soon Married. And it not only worked for Robyn and me, but it worked for a couple of others too. Well, Robyn was starting Teachers College and I was just completing my first teaching year, I think. And over her 2 years at college, we became a couple very much in love. And when it came time for her to finish college and take up her first teaching job in Know-How, a country school near Robyn, I proposed. I couldn't let her go and perhaps find some rich farmer with a interest in her. And that meant I began to make regular trips to Robyn each weekend. Now, Robyn was a triplet, and surprisingly, it happened that each of the three got engaged at around the same time, and with the result that the only affordable way for the family was that we have a triple wedding. And so we did, much to the delight of the town, the media, who turned out to witness the event as well. Now, Robyn didn't have many royal visits, and this made up for it. The crowds turned out. There were point policemen on State Highway 1 controlling the cars to allow a procession of, would you believe, 19 cars arrive at the church, carrying the brides and the bridesmaids, and a few cars in case somebody broke down. We lived in Upper Hutt in our first year of marriage. Robyn was teaching at Stokes Valley Primary, and I was around the corner at Taita College. Robyn was 19 when we married, just a few weeks short of turning 20, and when school started and I was back at Taita College, one of the senior girls came up to me and said, "So you married a 19-year-old, eh? It could have been me." And she was pretty good looking too. After our first year, we moved to the young town of Turangi, which was growing as the Tongariro Power Scheme was developing. We had to do country service teaching. We were given a brand new 3-bedroom education department house across the road from the high school and just down the road from the primary school. There were regular trips over the 2 years we were there, back to Robyn for weekends, trips to Taupo, Rotorua and Taramanui for shopping, and it was still the stage when country schools were given a day a term for the teachers to go off to do their shopping. Shopping day, holidays, each term. And of course, Ruapehu was always an attraction in summer and winter. And by that stage, I was a television stringer, filming news, and often we had assignments at Ruapehu, which gave us an excuse for us both to go, usually in the snow, and film the first ski-mobile in the country and things like that. But Robyn was a keen hockey player. In Robyn, she was a Horowhenua rep player. Then again in Wellington, she played hockey and made a rep team. Then in Turangi, she made the Bay of Plenty rep team, but the practices took longer than the games to get to because the practices were often back up in Taupo or Rotorua. Then once we moved to Auckland, she was a rep player again, and I think it was for the second level rep team. I was filming sports reports in Auckland at this stage, and when we were given women's hockey to film, I always seemed to film Robyn's team, Southern, which wasn't the top team, who couldn't quite work out why they never got on television. After the 2 years in Turangi, we moved to Auckland so that I could attend a study for my Bachelor of Divinity through the New Zealand Baptist College. Robyn worked teaching to provide the income so that I could study. I really appreciate and continue to appreciate Robyn's support in this. In fact, she continued right up until a few days before Matthew was born, our first son. Unfortunately, I'd just finished the exams and study and had just got a temporary teaching job, which was going to replace the income. The following year, we were able to commence building out in Howick, in the house that we still own, on the section that we still own, or half of it that we haven't sold. In those days, Howick was semi-rural, and with the lovely bush reserve next door, Robyn agreed that this would be okay. She didn't really want city life. She was a town girl, but if she had to live in the city, this was okay. I started teaching in James Cook High School and in Manurewa, and quite quickly organised school tours to Fiji and Australia each year. So in 1974, I took a school group up to Fiji, and Robyn came along as an adult helper. Then when we came back, we found in the Education Gazette an advert for a job as head of social science at Suva Grammar School. So I applied, not expecting anything, and got called to Wellington for an interview. I came back and I said to Robyn, that was the strangest job interview I've ever had. I said, the inspector's just come back from Fiji doing his inspection rounds, and all we talked about was where to go shopping in Suva, where were the best shoes in Waimanu Road and things like this, and comparing notes about Savu Savu. I said, I haven't a hope. Well, a few days later, the telegram came. Yes, we still had telegrams, and offered me the job, and so off we went. 3 young children, and to teach at Suva Grammar School. We were in Fiji from 1975 to the end of 1977. Hannah was born towards the end of that last year, and it seemed a good idea that that was be a time for us to head home. Our schoolhouse was only 2 bedrooms, and now there were 6 of us. It was a good time, and Robyn enjoyed it. She coached grammar school hockey, would you believe? And we found Matthew out there with a hockey stick at 6-year-old, 5 or 6-year-old, getting his first taste of hockey, something he's continued to do right till this day. Yes. On the Suva Grammar School class of 77 Facebook page, in a tribute, one of my ex-students wrote, Isa, our dear hockey coach, lovely lady, rest in peace, Mrs. Lawrence. And another of the students said, I, for one, remember her as she would cross the school grounds with your little children in tow, either to go to the swimming pool or to Vieto, which was the primary school. At other times, we would see her and her children come to the geography room where you would go out to see them. It's humbling to read the number of messages that have come from ex-students and people who from our past. Many with personal moments where Robyn has embedded herself into their life and into their memory. Also daycare parents, and sometimes even the little kiddies who have now grown up, who were daycare students, pupils. What do you call children at daycare? Anyhow, the messages coming through from them too. Robyn had an impact on lives that's continued. Well, we loved our time in Fiji, and as a family we spent lots of lovely times at a beach about an hour from Suva, but most interestingly, during the holidays we would often drive round to the other side of the island and stay in a then old Christian youth camp, an old church camp in the Sambeto Valley, surrounded by sugarcane farms and full of big black spiders. We have memories of stopping to pick mangoes. We grew our own pawpaws. We had our own coconut palms. And we loved the Indian sweets. There was a hawker who came and spread his wares out or brought the cart along to the school gate around 3 each day, and the children and parents would go down and buy some sweets. Great memories. In season, then there was the truckload of pineapples that would come into the school just before midday during pineapple season. And certain teachers would find an excuse to just walk out. I just need to leave the classroom for a moment or two and go down and collect the day's supply of fresh, juicy, ripe pineapples, which had come from the government pineapple farm at great price. Robyn loved going down to the supermarket and selecting vegetables and fruit. Some strange things there for us, but we learned to love daruka and taro and other local vegetables. And she began to become an identity with the market sellers. And when they realised that a very pregnant Robyn was not going to do the expat thing and fly home, but was going to have the baby in Suva, they treated her with even more respect, and the prices dropped. The longer we stayed in Fiji, in fact, the more she was treated as a local and not charged expat prices. She did tie-dyeing there in a craft she brought back home. We made friends there, which we still have over 40 years later. I had a phone call from one last night. And in fact, during our tour of Kyrgyzstan in 2015, Robyn and I were especially pleased in Bishkek to be able to visit Brad. Brad was a Fiji playmate of our children, along with his sister, and whose parents were our friends. And now he lives and works in Bishkek. We had a good time of remembrance there. When we returned to Howick in the end of 1977, we settled in and began to attend Howick Community Church. And that was an interesting time too, for sure. Robyn helped with Sunday school, except in those days it was called the 945 Club. They did some really innovative work there, which is still remembered as being ahead of its time in Christian education. We also mounted a weekend arts and craft exhibition at one stage with work from church members. On the Sunday, we sat mostly on the floor as the seats had been removed for the exhibition. For communion, we drank homemade Tamarillo wine from me. And Robyn baked the communion bread. Robyn was world famous for her bread amongst Howick Community Church. This is a skill that she's passed on to Matthew, and also Debbie and Becky can produce some pretty good bread as well. Well, back home, Robyn adjusted to her role as a local mother. We had new neighbours, Kath and Graham, shifted in while we were in Fiji. And they became good friends and still are today, and I welcome them to our service this morning. And I particularly want to acknowledge the role Kathleen has played as an encourager and really neat friend for Robyn, especially as dementia set in. Although based in Christchurch, they've got regular visits to Auckland to see family. And Kath and Robyn regularly had coffee and discussions together. And so often Robyn would be saying, I'm meeting Kath, aren't I? Yes, is it today? Oh no, Robyn, it's a couple of days away. And then she would ask again, shouldn't I be seeing Kath today? No, tomorrow. And tomorrow it would be, I see somebody today. Yes, she's thinking, oh, it's Kath, right. And it'd be real excitement again there. So special thanks to you, Kathleen, for the genuine friendship. It meant so much. Robyn got interested in spinning and weaving. She enjoyed not just spinning, but also dyeing the wool, mixing various combinations of local and natural ingredients to get the colour she wanted. And of course, most of the fleeces she used came from her father's flock. He made a point of looking out for black sheep to provide colour variations. Now, Robyn enjoyed knitting, particularly when she was younger. She once knitted me in the early married years a beautiful Fair Isle jersey. And that was significant because we sailed past the Fair Isle when we were coming from Shetland back to Orkney. We looked back there and thought, well, that's where that jersey's pattern came from. She also crocheted, made piggy squares, blankets. She crocheted and knitted blankets for each of our daughters when they were young. Just a few months ago, she discovered a partly finished blanket, and she was convinced that she'd started this for Matthew. She said, I've never given Matthew a blanket. The girls have got one, but he hasn't. And she was determined to finish it. She did work on it until Matthew and Michelle were coming for a visit 2 weekends ago. While she tried to finish it, Robyn never quite got to where she wanted. So the day before they arrived, I convinced her that this was the time to hand it over. And she thought and then said, yes, I will. It just needs a few ends tied up. And she was thrilled to pass it over, a dream complete. A few days later, a photo arrived of Matthew on the sofa watching television in the house of Wellington with a cuddly blanket all around him, and she was so thrilled and kept talking about that. And I was thrilled at her pleasure. She never knew, though, that the same blanket was around Matthew as we watched her during her final night. Besides spinning and knitting, Robyn also began weaving and made links of cloth which she turned into garments, a couple really flash coats, wall hangings and other items. There's still some unfinished work on the loom, but that's been in place for a while. She enjoyed working with wool. She was fascinated to visit a felt maker in rural Kyrgyzstan, and we have a sample of that lady's work. And just a few months ago, some of our younger relations came and ran a felting workshop on our deck for Robyn, and that was just the highlight for her. She loved every moment of it. Robyn attended weaving classes at Selwyn College, and there she made friends with a little Jewish lady who was also a keen weaver and old enough to have been a Holocaust survivor. They became good friends despite their age difference. This resulted in our visiting Montreal in 1998 and staying with her son and daughter-in-law in a conservative Jewish area of the city. It was a memorable experience which we both recall with a great degree of fascination and enjoyment, and we both still remember the smell of the bagel factory, one of the world's great famous bagel making places. It just happened because Robyn and Sylvia made a friendship of common interest, of trust and acceptance of who each one of them was. See, Robyn loved meeting and helping people. There was the Somalian family who came to the daycare centre. Robyn realised they were having trouble with translation and trouble dealing with government departments to get residency, and so she became their advocate, and she attended interviews at the various government agencies until they successfully got their residency. At some point in around 1990, Robyn was invited to join the staff of the Pakuranga College creche. In a short time, she became supervisor and worked tirelessly to change the name and the public acceptance from creche to early childhood learning centre. At the same time, she brought new professional ideas into the centre program. Early on, she saw the benefit of ideas from Reggio Emilia in Italy and managed to visit there. She adapted rather than copied because she realised that there were different cultural aspects to the learning approaches. Soon she was also promoting learning stories, something that came, I believe, out of Waikato University and Professor Margaret Carr. And this is a way to chart the child's personal development and progress in a way that was relevant to the child and to the parents. During her time at Pakuranga College, she began to make contact with an organisation, the Educational Learning Project, ELP. It's an exciting group working out of Hamilton Base and run by Wendy Lee. Robyn began to share in workshops and seminars and was invited to teach educators in Adelaide on a couple of occasions for 2 weeks at a time. This took her into Aboriginal areas and remote areas of South Australia, meeting early childhood educators. Fortunately, Robyn enjoyed this work and was accepted by ELP as somebody who had value and worth. And in the time when the college finally closed its early childhood learning centre, a time of much grief and sleepless nights for Robyn, she was able to work full-time for ELP. In this role, she did travel around the country and presented at national conferences, wrote articles for professional magazines, and visited centres for in-house professional development. Later, as she was doing crisis management for the Education Ministry as well. I had a chance to travel with Robyn to an international conference in Prague in 2007, and then we went together to Denmark so she could check out the forest kindergarten concept of early childhood education. In 2008, the conference was in Stavanger in Norway, and then they had meetings in Berlin after that. But I left the team and carried on with my own adventures at that stage. This was my retirement trip. Robyn did a lot of work in Germany over the years and with other groups of ELP folk. And in fact, in 2015, on our last trip, her big retirement one, she included an all-day solo seminar presentation in Berlin to a large audience. I should explain that in 2015, Robyn thought she would retire. And so as I'd had a retirement trip, I said to her, "Where do you want to go?" There was no hesitation. She said, "The Shetlands." Yeah, that's a good idea. So we went to the Shetland and Orkney, and then I said, why not do Skye as well? I've never been there. So we did Skye, and we also went back down to Lindisfarne, where she had been and just so loved the atmosphere of the early Christian heritage of Holy Island. And then I happened to say, well, anywhere else? And then she floored me really, truly. She said, I want to do the Silk Road. Ever since I was a child, I read books about explorers and Marco Polo and such like. I want to do the Silk Road, which created a problem for me because up till then I'd organised all the trips, all the accommodation, all the travel, all the connections and everything. But I know there's no way I can work something through China, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan and wherever. So we took our first trips with a professional travel company, small groups, never more than 7 or 8 in the group. And so for the last 40 days of our overseas tour in September into October 2015, we were moving from Beijing through Central Asia to end up in Tashkent, in Uzbekistan. Fascinating, wonderful. And in recent weeks, I've had my digital picture display going in the room with photographs from that trip, and it's given Robyn the chance to spot things and talk about them, with bringing her memories back. But Robyn also worked as part of ELP, had a work trip to Wales. She worked for a month in North England with kindergartens there and around London, and I guess some other places too. Sometimes she was the only team member working in the area. And during this time, Robyn also completed her Bachelor of Education in Early Childhood, upskilling. Now, I'm not qualified to talk about her contribution to education. I've been reading the personal comments that have in the tribute on the ELP blog page, and quite frankly, I'm amazed. It gives me a fresh perspective on my wife, and I'm humbled by what's been said. So you've got the link to follow that up and see some of the personal tributes from other educators as well. Robyn loved her family, and the fact they're playing around here wouldn't upset her in the slightest. She enjoyed meeting up with them and hearing about their activities and their achievements. She'll repeat the news to me so often during the day as if I'd never heard it before, and if she was telling me for the first time, and she had no idea that I also got it on WhatsApp. WhatsApp was a crucial ingredient in her life in recent months, as it provided ongoing regular updates and photos. She loved the photos but tended to forget where they were. So a few months back I went to Noel Emming and bought a little Canon photo printer along with an immense supply of paper and dye transfer ribbons. It prints up the postcard and we can just send the photo from the phone to the printer and she gets a postcard of it. And she could spread out the photos over the table and look at them and rearrange them and group them and do all sorts of things, shuffle them around, change the display, and it really was one of the most exciting things for her in terms of feeling focused and feeling linked to the family. She would sit on the couch in the lounge and look up at our high clerestory windows, I think they're called, and she could look out and see the top of the kuwhai tree. And she would get excited when the tuis or the pigeon were there. And the fact they were eating all the buds off our next season's yellow flowers didn't worry her at all. It's the fact she could watch them up there. And then at night, because we don't have curtains on those windows, she could look up and she would see the moon and say, oh, it's a beautiful moon tonight. Then at other times she would look down in the other direction out, and in the last few weeks, or a few weeks ago, she was watching a tree with yellow autumn leaves. I think it's an amber that we have on our section. And she watched them change colour and she'd talk and the sunlight sparkling through them. And it was a constant subject of her conversation. She just loved looking out there, and then she would look out and see the sunsets. We can't see the sunsets very well because we're down on the hollow of it. But what we could see would appeal to her, and she would take photos and send them off to the family. sunset photos. I could mention her garden, which she loved working in, putting copious bags of compost across the garden and truckloads of zoo poo. But she did grow some beautiful vegetables. And up near the house are small beds of strawberries with netting over them, just enough for the grandchildren to come and hunt them out when they visit. A couple final things. Robyn had a collection of old items from her father's farm, twisted old fence posts, various ancient farm tools, all with a story and a memory. A month or so ago, she got out the copper milk cooling tank from the old farm separator, and she started rubbing it with salt and white vinegar to remove oxidation layer and restore the original copper's shine. Well, that's a work in progress. She didn't finish it, but she enjoyed the hours of labour that she put into it. When we travelled around New Zealand and stopped at a beach or a riverbank, Robyn would be off. She was in her element. She was out looking for for colourful stones and pebbles. I'm sure that there are still bags of pebbles hidden away in our motorhome, waiting to be discovered. But there's plenty come down to the house, and they're displayed artistically in every nook and cranny. Stones mean a lot to her. She would get up and pick them up, select one or two, rub them, enjoy the colours and the warmth they contain, and come across to me and say, "Look at it, isn't it beautiful?" And I would try to see what she was talking about. But sometimes there are layers of texture within it or patterns, and I could contribute. She tried to enthuse me, but I was just happy to say, "Yes, they are, aren't they?" "What type of stone do you think it is?" she would ask. "Oh, sandstone." No, that's probably grey-wacky. And, oh yes, this is a conglomerate. It's got a few things mixed up in it. Sedimentary for sure was another one. Was this touch of green in this stone, did that mean it might be greenstone? And this stone with the stripes and the texture down it, at first I said it might be petrified wood, but later on I really changed my mind. I said, I think it's the end of a stalactite. I said, it looks like a sort of a marble, and that really impressed her, and she would take it and she would just shine and say, "Have a look at this." She loved her stones. And so right now we're going to come to a special moment of remembrance for Robyn. Now normally we go to a graveside, and as the coffin is lowered, there's a chance to throw a flower or a bit of earth down onto the casket as a personal commitment of some sort. But today we decided to change that because we don't have a graveside. And we have here a selection of stones, of Robyn's precious pebbles. And I would like to invite you in a moment to come forward if you wish, to take one from the basket and just place it on the tray that we're going to put onto the top of the casket. Perhaps as you do so, you could recall in your mind some special moment you had with Robyn, or say a short prayer. As we do this, hopefully we'll be playing a song sung by Toby and Pippa, grandchildren from Nelson, Sussex. Robyn, as I said, loved this. It was recorded while we were down in Nelson in lockdown in March to May this year. And we've played it a lot back home. And as Robyn was in her last minutes in hospital, Becky played this song beside Robyn's ear. And just after Robyn passed away, they realised there was a tear in Robyn's eye. We think it's a song. We had almost 60 years together, Robyn and I. When I was a young teenager, like others, I would ask at Bible class, how do I know who God will want me to marry? Is there a special one for me? How do I know? And the answer was, oh, you'll know. But there's so many girls around. How can I tell the special one God intended for me? "Oh, you'll know," they would say, which I thought was a cop-out. But when I met Robyn, I quickly knew that this was the one, and time has proved that she was just that. So now I invite you to come and just, if you wish, to place a pebble on Robyn's casket in memory. Thank you.
Even when I don't see where you are gone, and with all the questions weighing on my heart, still I don't know where I'd be without your love. There's no one else for me, you are my God. When I'm afraid you're dancing around me, when I'm alone you're standing beside me. You are my Father, you're my friend, you are my song. There's no one else for me, you're my God. And I love you, Lord, sings my soul. I love you, Lord, sings my soul. You gave me life, and I'd gladly give it all. I love you, Lord, sings my soul. I love you, Lord. I love you, Lord. And even when I don't see where you are, God, and with all the questions weighing on my heart, still I don't know where I'd be without your love. There's no one else for me, you're my God. When I'm afraid you're dancing around me, when I'm alone you're standing beside me. You are my Father, you're my friend, you are my song. There's no one else for me, you're my God. And I love you, Lord, sings my soul. I love you, Lord, sings my soul. You gave me life, and I'd gladly give it all. I love you, Lord, sings my soul. I love you, Lord. I love you, Lord. I love you, Lord. I love you, Lord. All you've ever wanted was my heart, God. And all I want right now is your love. You're running after me, I'm searching desperately. This is the story of a father and his child. All you've ever wanted was my heart, God. And all I want right now is your love. You're running after me, I'm searching desperately. This is
Well, thank you, family, for your memories and sharing with us. It's good to take the time to do that, and I think you filled in some gaps for us, and we value that. You also reminded us of things that we already knew, and we value that as well. When I was planning this service, I wrote down the words, message of encouragement. It just seemed right. What better thing could I do than try to say something that would be an encouragement to those who are feeling the impact of Robyn's death on their lives? But as I considered this, I was also very mindful that it was important to honor Robyn and all that she represented. I knew this meant that I would have to avoid reciting meaningless religious platitudes. To honor Robyn, anything I have to say this morning needs to be done with integrity, it needs to be true, and it needs to be appropriate. A Christian funeral must navigate safe passage between the rocks of sentimentality and the rocks of despair. Sentimentality is the enemy of truth. Despair is the enemy of hope. Today, we must avoid both. As I considered these thoughts, it came to me that just as we have learned much from Robyn during her life, so today we can learn from her as we mourn her death. And I trust that as I lead you in a short reflection on what I believe Robyn understood and believed, we will all be encouraged. Encouraged enough to continue in the great adventure of life, having been strengthened from this experience, the experience of mourning the death of one we love so dearly. There would be few people I know who I could confidently say, I know the books that have had the biggest impact on her life. But without hesitation, I can say that about Robyn. Well, slight hesitation. I checked with the family. You got it. It was only months ago that she again referred me to two publications that she has been quoting for 40 years. The first of these was published in the 1930s. It's titled, Mr. God, This is Anna. Written under the pseudonym Flynn, the author recalls the time when, as a 16-year-old, he came across Anna, a 5-year-old homeless waif in London's East End. Flynn took her home, where his family adopted her informally, and Finn became Anna's main caregiver, while Anna became Finn's tutor. The book reveals Anna to be brilliant, and by nature the inquisitor, the forever probing creature who likes to find a reason for everything. Finn, a student, tries to follow her hard-to-understand yet simple logic. Philosophical questions are investigated through the eyes of a child who proposes simple, common-sense solutions. Many of the conversations involve religion, with Anna personalizing the divine, calling him Mr. God. Some years ago, I came across a conservative Christian commentator who consigned the book, Mr. God, This is Anna, to the category of heresy. That is, of course, often the response of those who are challenged to rethink ideas long held to be true and infallible. But when I saw that commentator's words, it reminded me that Robyn was a woman who instinctively wanted to discover truth for herself and not just consume reheated ideas from past thinkers. It made me wonder what it was in this book that made such an impact on Robyn, and so, at her urging, I purchased a copy and read it for myself. And I returned to it again in preparation for this message. It didn't take me long to form the view about what had caught Robyn's attention. I believe that in the theories and philosophies espoused by Anna, Robyn found a God that was much bigger than she had been introduced to through mainstream Christian theology. Not that Robyn opposed Christian thought and doctrine. It's more that her focus went well beyond that. She discovered a God that was bigger than the one reduced to human explanations and religious thought. Dr. Rowan Williams, while serving as the Archbishop of Canterbury, observed that God is, in no sense, simply another inhabitant of the universe who just happens to be more powerful than any other. Nor is he an observer of the created scene from an advantaged position, reacting to our behavior from the outside. God, muses Williams, is the context of everything. Anna could have said that. I think Robyn would like to think about that for some time. The biblical scholar and translator J.B. Phillips published a book entitled Your God is Too Small. And if we can learn something today from the life of Robyn Lawrence, it would be to look beyond. Look beyond our formal religious instruction. Look beyond our doctrines. Look beyond our experiences of life and be overwhelmed with the mystery we call God. The poet, King David, wrote of this divine mystery in his psalm. Great is the Lord, and most worthy of praise. His greatness no one can fathom. I will meditate on your wonderful work. I sense that Robyn Lawrence had discovered that true faith was belief in something beyond that which could be explained in sermons and religions. True faith was trusting in a God that was much, much greater than all that. The second book that meant a great deal to Robyn, or perhaps I should more correctly say, the author that Robyn referred to often, was Father Brennan Manning, whose first book, The Ragamuffin Gospel, had a huge impact on her. You see, Robyn was not impressed with the exterior or the outer facade of self-styled religious leaders, or any of us for that matter. Robyn was impressed with honesty. And I think that is what she found in the writings of Brennan Manning, a man who admitted to great failure in his life. Brennan Manning was a confessed and unrecovered alcoholic who was reaching out to God for mercy. He failed in the religious order when he fell in love, only then to fail in marriage. We capture something of what was informative to Robyn in Brennan Manning's own words when he wrote, "My life has been anything but a straight shot, more like a crooked path filled with thorns and crows and vodka. Prone to wander? You bet. I've been a priest, then an ex-priest, husband, then an ex-husband. I amazed crowds one night and lied to friends the next. Drunk for years, sober for a season, then drunk again. I've been John the Beloved, Peter the Coward, and Thomas the Doubter, all before the waitress brought the check. I've shattered every one of the 10 Commandments 6 times on Tuesday. And if you believe that last sentence was for dramatic effect, It wasn't. Robyn was drawn to people of weakness, people who were vulnerable, people who were poor and marginalized. Brennan Manning was not only one of those himself, but devoted his life to causes of justice and mercy. And so did Robyn. I always felt as if Robyn had X-ray vision. She looked right through your polished exterior. When talking to you, she seemed to be saying, "But what's really going on? I'm more interested in your struggles and weaknesses than I am in your manufactured persona." And Robyn saw hope and redemption for everyone and related to Manning's ragamuffin gospel when he writes this. Why is Brennan Manning lovable in the eyes of God? Because on February the 8th, 1956, in a shattered, life-changing experience, I committed my life to Jesus? Does God love me because ever since I was ordained a priest in 1963, I roamed the country and lately all over the world, proclaiming the good news of the gospel of grace? Does God love me because I tithe to the poor? Does he love me because I work on Skid Row with alcoholics, addicts, those who suffer with AIDS? Does God love me because I spend 2 hours every day in prayer? If I believe that stuff, I'm a Pharisee. Then I'm entitled to be comfortably close to Christ because of my good works. The gospel of grace says, Brennan, Robyn, you're lovable for one reason only, because God loves you, period. And so I suggest that the second thing we can learn from Robyn today is to love as she loved and was loved. To seek honesty as she did. To abandon our false images and pretense and allow ourselves to be vulnerable. To allow ourselves to be vulnerable in our weakness and in our failings. We learn from Robyn to reach out to others who are vulnerable and to express the love of Christ to them. Not with slickness, but in a ragamuffin gospel sort of a way. And we learn from Robyn to accept the mercy of God who loves us and who accepts us just the way we are. In a few moments, we will formally say goodbye to Robyn, committing her physical remains to the same elements as those from where she came. And we will commit her soul to the care of her Lord. There's no greater encouragement than can be found in this hope, the Christian hope. This is a new beginning for Robyn, not the end. The hope that somewhere in this mystery of God, there is an eternal destiny. Contrary to what some would have you believe, the Bible does not give us a clear picture of what life in the presence of God is like. Yes, there are some wonderful images found in the Bible, images that give us both comfort and hope at times like this. The writer of Hebrews suggests that heaven is as close as Jerusalem, while Paul describes it as being in the extremities of the celestial. Jesus describes it as being like a large mansion. In other places, we find the image of a shining city or an entire kingdom. It seems that God has deliberately kept the details obscure. We sense that there are windows to the afterlife, but they are shuttered. We get at best glimpses of what lies beyond the grave. But my encouragement this morning is that the Christian faith is embedded in the life and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And the Bible is unequivocal about that. The resurrection of Jesus is central to the Christian faith. There was no delay before the early Christ followers were shouting to anyone who would listen, Christ has conquered death. It was because of the resurrected Christ that the missionary Paul could write, Death, where is your sting? Grave, where's your victory now? It may have taken some time before the apostles and the early church fathers tried to explain what had happened and why it had happened. Church doctrine may have constantly evolved and developed since that time, over thousands of years. But from the day those women met the risen Christ in the garden, the central theme and hope of the Christian church has been that phrase, He is not here, He is risen. And Christ himself promised this hope to his followers when he said, those who listen to my message and believe in God who sent me have eternal life. They have already passed from death into life. Today we give praise and thanksgiving to God for the hope we have in Jesus. We give praise and thanksgiving to God that his follower, Robyn Lawrence, is with him, fulfilling his promise that where I am, so you will be also. I suggest to you that perhaps the reason why God has given us at best an incomplete understanding of the future of our soul, it is because his purpose for us is to celebrate life, to live life to our fullest potential. And in the context of our service today, that means we add to our experience all that we have learned from Robyn. She was God's gift to us, so we could learn from her, and in doing so, live more abundantly. And by doing that, we not only honor Robyn, but we honor the God who made us and gave us the gift of life and the gift of love. Gordon and family, I want to extend to you our sympathy and encouragement on behalf of friends and relatives, both those gathered in this room and those who are watching live stream online. May you know God's peace and God's presence. And may you be encouraged by the message of Robyn's life as you will mourn her passing for some time, perhaps forever. Now we will stand and sing together the Christian song, Christ Alone.
In Christ alone, my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fiercest drought and storm. What heights of love, what depths of peace, when fears are stilled, when striving cease. My comforter, my all in all, here in the love of Christ I stand. In Christ alone, who took on flesh, fullness of God in helpless babe, this gift of love and right righteousness, scorned by the ones he came to save, till on the cross as Jesus died, the wrath of God was satisfied. For every sin on him was laid. Here in the death of Christ I live. There in the ground his body lay, light of the world by darkness slain. Then bursting forth in glorious day, up from the grave he rose again. And as he stands in victory, sin's curse has lost its grip on me. For I am his and he is mine, bought with the precious blood of Christ. No guilt in life, no fear in death. This is the power of Christ in me. From life's first cry to final breath, Jesus commands my destiny. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from his hand, till he returns or calls me home. Here in the power of Christ I stand.
Remain standing. Because God has chosen to call our sister Robyn Elizabeth Lawrence from this life to himself, we now release her and commit her body to the elements. In sure and certain hope of the resurrection to eternal life through our Lord Jesus Christ, we commend to Almighty God our sister Robyn, and we commit her body to its resting place. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The Lord bless her and keep her. The Lord make his face to shine upon her and be gracious unto her. The Lord lift up his countenance upon her and give her peace. Amen. And so we now leave this place united in sorrow and love. Go with precious memories of Robyn in your hearts and seek justice and peace for all. Be courageous, be creative, and be loving in the likeness of Jesus Christ. Amen.
all the questions weighing on my heart. Still, I don't know where I'd be without your love. There's no one else for me. You are my God. When I'm afraid you're dancing around me. When I'm alone, you're standing beside me. You are my Father, you're my friend, you are my son. There's no one else for me. You are my God. And I love you, Lord, sings my soul. I love you, Lord, sings my soul. You gave me life, and I'd gladly give it all. You're dancing around me. When I'm alone, you're standing beside me. You are my Father, you're my friend, you are my son. There's no one else for me. You are my God. And I love you, Lord, sings my soul. I love you, Lord, sings my soul. You gave me life, and I'd gladly give it all. I love you, Lord, sings my soul. I love you, Lord. I love you, Lord. And even when I don't see where you are, God, and with all the questions weighing